Welcome back to Witness Depot University. I'm Michael Parrott. We want to continue to equip you, edify you, exhort you, encourage you, and enlist you to be a witness to your world, to share the gospel of Jesus Christ to your world. We want to continue on with this teaching on our focus is on the mission of the church, the mission of the believer. And we want to focus in on witnessing in your world. And I want to take the time to read this. I think this is an incredible word from the Lord, and I believe that will really help you and stir your heart to witness to your world. So I'm going to take some time to read this, but let's get started. And it's by General William Booth, a great man of God, a great street minister, and took the gospel to the streets, took the church to the streets. They worshiped on the streets. They led people to the Lord on the streets. And they also called themselves the Salvation Army. And it's paraphrased by Keith Green of Last Day Ministries, a great man of God. On one of my recent journeys, as I gazed from the coach window, I was led into a train of thought concerning the conditions of the multitudes around me. They were living carelessly in the most open and shameless rebellion against God, without a thought for their eternal welfare. As I looked out the window, I seemed to see them all, millions of people all around me, given up to their drink and their pleasure and their dancing and their music and their business troubles, and their anxieties and their politics and all their troubles, ignorant and willfully ignorant in many cases, and in other instances, knowing all about the truth and not caring at all. But all of them, the whole mass of them, sweeping on and up in their blasphemies and devilries to the throne of God. While my mind was thus engaged, I had a vision. I saw a dark and stormy ocean. Over it, the black clouds hung heavily. Through them, every now and then, vivid lightning flashed and loud thunder rolled, while the winds moaned and the waves rose and foamed, towered and broke, only to rise and foam again. In that ocean, I thought I saw myriads of poor human beings, plunging and floating and shouting and shrieking and cursing and struggling and drowning. And as they cursed and screamed, they rose and shrieked again, and then some sank to rise no more. And I saw out of this dark, angry ocean a mighty rock that rose up with its summit towering high above the black clouds that overhung the stormy sea. And all around the base of this rock I saw a vast platform. On to this platform I saw with delight a number of poor, struggling, drowning wretches, continually climbing out of the angry ocean. And I saw that a few of those who were already safe on that platform were helping these poor creatures still in the angry waters to reach the place of safety. On looking more closely, I found a number of those who had been rescued industriously, working and scheming by ladders, ropes, boats, and other means more effective to deliver the poor strugglers out of this sea. Here and there were some who actually jumped into the water, regardless of the consequences, in their passion to rescue the perishing. And I hardly know which gladdened me most, the sight of the poor drowning people climbing onto the rocks, reaching the place of safety, or the devotion and self-sacrifice of those whose whole beings were wrapped up in the effort for their deliverance. As I looked on, I saw that the occupants of that platform were quite a mixed company. That is, they were divided into different sets or classes, and they occupied themselves with different pleasures and employments. But only a very few of them seemed to make it their business to get the people out of the sea. But what puzzled me most was the fact that through all of them had been rescued at one time or another from the ocean, nearly everyone seemed to have forgotten all about it. Anyway, it seemed the memory of its darkness and danger no longer troubled them at all. And what seemed equally strange and perplexing to me was that these people did not even seem to have any care. That is, any agonizing, any care about the poor, perishing ones who were struggling and drowning right before their eyes. And many of them were the husbands and wives and brothers and sisters, even their own children. Now, this astonishing unconcern could not have been the results of ignorance or lack of knowledge, because they lived right there in full sight of it all and even talked about it sometimes. Many even went regularly to hear lectures and sermons in which the awful state of these poor drowning creatures was described. I have already said that the occupants of this platform were engaged in different pursuits and pastimes. Some of them were absorbed night and day in trading and business in order to make gain, storing up their savings in boxes and safes and the like. Many spent their time in amusing, sometimes with growing flowers on the side of the rock, others in painting pieces of cloth, or in playing music, or in dressing themselves up in different styles and walking about to be admired. Some occupied themselves chiefly in eating and drinking. Others were taken up with arguing about the poor drowning creatures that had already been rescued. But the thing to me that seemed the most amazing was those that on the platform to whom he called and who heard his voice felt they ought to obey it. At least they said they did. Those who confessed to love him much were in full sympathy with him in the task he had undertaken, who worshipped him, who professed to do so, were taken up with their trades and professions, their money saving and their pleasures, their families, their circles, their religions, and their arguments about it, and their preparation for going to the mainland, that they did not listen to the cry that came to them from this wonderful being who had himself gone down into the sea. Anyway, if they heard it, they did not heed it. They did not care. And so the multitude went on right before them, struggling and shrieking and drowning in darkness. And then I saw something that seemed to me even more strange than anything that had gone on before in this strange vision. I saw that some of these people on the platform whom this wonderful being had called to, wanting them to come and help him in this difficult task of saving these perishing creatures, were always praying and crying out to him to come to them. Some wanted him to come and stay with them and spend his time and strength in making them happier. Others wanted him to come and take away various doubts and misgivings they had concerning the truth of some letters which he had written to them. Some wanted him to come and make them feel more comfortable on the rock, so secure that they would be quite sure that they should never slip off again into the ocean. Numbers of others wanted to make them feel quite certain that they would really get off the rock onto the main line someday. Because, a matter of fact, it was well known that some had walked so carelessly as to lose their footing and had fallen back again into the stormy waters. So these people used to meet and get up as high on the rock as they could, and looking toward the mainland, where they thought that the great being was, they would cry out, "Come to us, come help us." And all the while he was down by his spirit among the poor, struggling, drowning creatures in the angry deep, with his arms around them, trying to drag them out, and looking up, oh, so longingly, but in vain, to those on the rock, crying to them with his voice, all hoarse from calling, "Come to me, come and help me." Then I understood it all. It was plain enough. That sea was the ocean of life, the sea of real, actual human existence. That lightning was the gleaming of piercing truth coming from Jehovah's throne. That thunder was the distant echoing of the wrath of God. Oh, the multitudes of people shrieking, struggling, and agonizing in the stormy sea were the thousands and thousands of poor harlots and harlot makers, of drunkards, drunkard makers, of thieves, liars, blasphemers, and ungodly people of every kindred, tongue, and nation. Oh, what a black sea it was. Oh, what a multitude of rich and poor and ignorant and educated were there. They were all so unalike in their outward circumstances and conditions, yet alike in one thing: all sinners before God, and held by a holding on to some iniquity, fascinated by some idol, the slaves of some devilish lust, ruled by the foul fiend from the bottomless pit. Alike in one thing, no, alike in two things. Not only the same in their wickedness, but unless rescued, that same in their sinking down to that terrible doom. That great sheltering rock represented Calvary, the place where Jesus had died for them, and the people the people on it were those who had been rescued. The way they used their energies, gifts, and time represented the occupations and amusements of those who professed to be saved from sin and hell and followers of the Lord Jesus Christ. That handful of fierce, determined ones who were risking their own lives and saving the perishing were true soldiers of the cross of Jesus Christ. That mighty being who was calling them from the midst of the angry waters was the Son of God, the same yesterday, today, and forever, who is still struggling and interceding to save the dying multitudes from this terrible doom of damnation, and whose voice can be heard above the music, machinery, the noise of life, calling on the rescued to come and help him save the world. My friends in Christ, you are rescued from the waters. You are on the rock. He is in the dark sea, calling on you to come to him and to help him. Will you go? Look for yourselves. The surging sea of life crowded with perishing multitudes rose up to the very spot on which you stand. Leaving the vision, I now come to speak of the fact, a fact that is real as the Bible, as real as Christ who hung upon the cross, as real as the judgment day will be, and as real as heaven and hell that will follow it. Look, don't be deceived by appearances. Men and things are not what they seem. All who are not on the rock are in the sea. Look at them from the standpoint of the great white throne judgment. And what a sight you have. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, through his Spirit, in the midst of this dying multitude, struggling to save them. And he is calling on you to jump into the sea, to go right away, to his side and help him in this holy strife? Will you jump? That is, will you go to his feet and place yourself absolutely at his disposal? A young Christian once came to me and told me that for some time she had been giving the Lord her profession and prayers and money, but now she wanted to give him her life. She wanted to go right into the fight. In other words, she wanted to go to his assistance in the sea. And as when a man from the shore seeing another struggling in the water takes off those outer garments that would hinder his efforts and leaps to the rescue, so will you still linger on the bank, thinking and singing and praying about the poor perishing souls? Lay aside your shame and your pride and your cares about other people's opinions, your love of ease and all the selfish loves that have kept you back for so long, and rush to the rescue of the multitude of dying men and women. Does the surging sea look dark and dangerous? Unquestionably, it is so. There is no doubt that the leap for you as for everyone who takes it means difficulty and scorn and suffering. For if you, it may mean more than this. It may mean death. He who beckons you from the sea, however, knows that it will mean, and knowing, he still calls to you and bids you to come. You must do it. You cannot hold back. You have enjoyed yourself in Christianity long enough. You have had pleasant feelings, pleasant songs, pleasant meetings, pleasant prospects. There has been much of human happiness, much clapping of hands and shouting of praises, very much of heaven on earth. Now then, go to God and tell him you are prepared as much as necessary to turn your back upon it all, and that you are willing to spend the rest of your days struggling in the midst of these perishing multitudes, whatever it may cost you. You must do it. With the light that is now broken in upon your mind, and the call that is now sounding in your ears, and the beckoning hands that are now before your eyes, you have no alternative. To go down among the perishing crowds is your duty. Your happiness from now on will consist in sharing their misery, your ease in sharing their pain, your crown in helping them to bear their cross, and your heaven in going into the very jaws of hell to rescue them now. What will you do? Thanks for joining us in Witness Depot University. We'll see you next time.